Hey guys, we had a little problem when Kobe and I recorded this show with buffering with the internet. I think my kids are sucking up a little bit too much of the juice from playing Fortnite while we were recording. But Kobe has such an amazing story from his time on the big boat until today that I really wanted to make sure we got it out. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. So we invite you to sit back, relax, and as they say, on with the show. Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter when the ships are sailing. Christy is long in bed. It's kind of late in the evening tonight, and Chris is a little busy, so I'm going to be running the show tonight myself. But I think you guys are going to really enjoy this cruise report. It was a sailing that took place a little while ago, but it talks about it not only a repositioning cruise, it also talks about very maritime. And as we come into the Christmas holiday season, I think that's a kind of a sailing that we all would love to hear and be on. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show today, Kobe from Utah. How you doing today, Kobe?
I'm great, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad. Thanks a lot for reaching out and talking to us about your guys' cruise. I know it was a little while ago, but I think you, like the rest of us, have kind of missed out on a couple of different cruises between now and then, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been rough. At any opportunity to talk Disney cruise and, reminisce on some of these memories is a great opportunity for me.
Well, your family is West Coast, and before you talk about your family, you guys are West Coast living in Utah. Are you guys Disneyland people, Disney World? Kind of give us your Disney background.
We grew up mostly Disneyland people. We're about 10 hours or so from the park here. We grew up jumping in the family station wagon and driving down to Anaheim to visit Disneyland. We go down there quite a bit with the kids. I used to work in Southern California, and now we kind of bounce back and forth between Disney World and Disneyland, depending on which is most economical for us at the time.
So how did you guys go from visiting the parks to Disney Cruise Line? And I know that you've got, and I guess probably before your family went, you've got kind of an interesting backstory to that.
Yeah, absolutely. We, back in the late 80s, my grandmother, in fact, took us on a cruise on the Big Red Boat, which was kind of a Disney co-branded land and sea vacation where you'd go for 3 nights on the Big Red Boat and Disney World for 4 days. And that was my first Disney World experience, and it was a blast. They obviously don't brand the Big Red Boats like they do Disney ships. There's a Mickey walking around and a Donald ice sculpture and things like that. But that was kind of the extent of it.
Do you remember much about it? Was it like rotational dining and that type of stuff too, even back then, or do you remember much about it?
It definitely wasn't. In fact, during quarantine, I've had a lot of opportunity to go back and look at some old pictures and take a trip down memory lane. It was just a single seating, no rotational dining, anything like that. And the service wasn't anywhere near what it is with Disney. And I think that's why Michael Eisner, he went on that ship and he was like, yeah, we got to do our own thing. This is not up to Disney's quality and standards. And so I think that's where the Disney Cruise Line got its start. Yeah, it was fun though. Those were little ships back in the day and compared to what they have now. But we visited Nassau and Freeport and headed back to Port Canaveral.
What an amazing experience. If you get some pictures, it'd be awesome if you could send them our way. And I'm sure people would love to see it. Anything that you'd feel comfortable sharing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can see 12-year-old Kobe. That'll be fun.
Just as long as Mickey doesn't look like the Mickey in Times Square or anything like that. So
it's a little creepy, Mickey. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't quite look like Mickey, but it's still kind of fun to see.
It's kind of part of the product of that age too. So, but anyway, so you move on a little bit later, and then you had some interesting experiences once you got through college as well, right?
Yeah, in college, I had some really good friends who were performers on the Disney ships, on the Magic and the Wonder, for a couple of years. They were friends of characters, and they also performed on the main stage with the cruise line. And I had 3 or 4 opportunities to go on and sail with them, just kind of staying in their room as a non-rev passenger. And that was really interesting to kind of see my first experience with Disney Cruise was as like a pseudo crew member. See kind of the underbelly of the ship, see the I-95 corridor, as they call it, kind of dine in the crew quarters, get to know some of the crew off stage. So that was really fun. We got to go to the crew pool and go to some of the parties at night there and see what that was all about. But I also got to spend, the evenings going to the main rotational dinings. They put me at a table with a bunch of couples and me, just a single guy, just kind of was the ninth wheel there.
So did your Key to the World card kind of like it just got you to go backstage too, kind of in the crew quarters?
Yeah, it totally did. I mean, I don't recall any like access panels to get down to deck 2 and deck 1. There was this like different ways and different hallways that you'd go down. And, my Key to the World just opened my friend's dorm room. The crew dorms aren't nearly the size of the staterooms that we get up on top decks, for sure. They've got four people crammed into a space that could probably fit one or two of us.
So when you did something like that, did you just do a full cruise with them? Could you stay on like a couple different cruises, or how did it kind of work?
Yeah, it was great. One of my friends was on the Wonder, and so I did a couple back-to-back cruises with him. We did a 3-night and a 4-night, and another friend was on the Magic, and they were doing 7-night itineraries, and so I got to go on a 7-night with a night a year later with him. So I got to go on a few different itineraries with them.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you have any memories from kind of like the crew areas? You talked about a little bit about how small the crew quarters were, but what type of entertainment do they have down there for them? Do they have like, I know they have like a crew bar, and then they also have some other different, they have a gym and whatnot, but what type of entertainment do they have for them?
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember going into different crew staterooms and like playing cards and just playing random games with random crew members down there. A lot of the crew went up to like the karaoke nights and the discotheque after hours, and we'd sing karaoke and dance just along with the other passengers. But there was, obviously the crew pool. There was always, it seems like every other night that there was a party going on there. There's the crew bar. They have a store down there where you can, buy all the trinkets you need, and they don't gouge you for the prices like they do up on top deck.
Up in Mickey's mainsail.
Exactly. It's a little bit different. And the kind of just a crew galley where everyone meets, and had a lot of great conversations with, some different performers and, different servers and all sorts of different people from around the country down in those crew galleys. Yeah. And honestly, some of the best food I had on the cruise was down in the crew galley. They have these amazing curries and stuff like that. It was really fun.
We've had the opportunity to have the curry up there, and I think an Animator's Palette last time we were up there, we asked for that, and they bring you so much. It's just amazing. I'm sure people listening to this podcast right now are about kicking themselves because they're like, you should ask him this, you should ask him that. But was it something that you ever thought you yourself would want to do after kind of spending time down there and with the crew members?
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely loved it. My two friends I had 3 friends who were performers on the ship. They were extraordinarily tall individuals, and so they had a leg up on some of those characters that they could play. I thought it would be fun. I was kind of in the middle of my studies. I wasn't ready to take a year off and do something like that. But it obviously crossed my mind. That would have been a lot of fun to take a contract for 6 months on a ship like that.
Yeah, I kind of look back. Sometimes I kick myself because I never did the backpacking trip through Europe like some friends did, or, it took 2 years to go, sail the world with Disney Cruise Line or anything like that. I just went right into what I'm doing now, and sometimes I kick myself. I wish I could have had that opportunity. So.
I know. Why did I go to 4 years of college straight in a row? That seems ridiculous.
I know. All right, so you, like the rest of us, grow up, you get married, you get a family. Kind of talk about who traveled on this cruise, and was this wasn't your first Disney cruise with your family? Have you guys been on others before?
Yeah, so we started cruising. We got married in the early zeros and started having kids in the mid zeros. We started cruising again in 2010, and we took a little 3-night trip on the Wonder. We had 2 kids at the time. One of them stayed home, and we took our almost kindergartner as kind of his get ready for kindergarten trip, and that was a blast. It was fun to dip back into cruising and get the love for it. And we've kind of been about every 18 months from that point out. Every 18 months to 2 years, we seem to add a kid every single time we go. So we've got 4 kids, and this last cruise they all went with us. They're 5, 8, 11, and 15 now, so they'll be at all different stages for our next cruise. We've had a couple of them, a couple cruises cancel this year, unfortunately. My wife and I were going to go on one in in May, which was canceled fairly early on. And we parlayed that money into our November cruise, which we had booked since opening day, which was actually Christy was supposed to be on it. It was a double dip on the Fantasy.
Oh no!
We were very excited about that, and then we saw the writing on the wall, and so we took that money and rebooked it for a year from then. So we actually don't have anything booked until November of 2021, but I'm sure we can try and slide one in once they start cruising again, and once the mask regulations have kind of loosened up a little bit.
So are you on that November 2021 double dip that everybody else is doing too, or?
No, we decided that we were just going to save a little bit of money. It's hard with 2 staterooms these days. We're going the day after Thanksgiving. I guess 2 days after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We'll be there.
Being on the West Coast, have you sailed on the Wonder out of San Diego or Alaska?
We didn't. We've done, 2 cruises outside of Disney. We went on a kind of a couples trip on the Royal Caribbean off the West Coast down to Cabo and Mazatlan and Puerto Vallarta several years ago. And then 2 years ago, we took a Princess cruise out of Seattle up to Alaska, which was awesome. You can't say enough good things about Alaska. I was trying to talk them into a Disney cruise, but it's hard to at 2 to 3 times the price. But obviously, you sacrifice a lot of quality and a lot of service when you change cruise lines.
Well, as you said, when you're paying for 2 cabins too, that kind of adds up.
It for sure does.
Yeah, don't fault you there. Plus, with Alaska, a lot of that is just the destination itself, and so so much of it is getting off the ship and spending time in just that beautiful country and seeing it as you go by. It seems like. So good on you for doing that. So, let's turn to this cruise. What made you guys book this one? Now, this one left out of Puerto Rico, repositioning on the Disney Magic. Had you been to Puerto Rico before, and why did you guys book this one?
We'd never been to Puerto Rico. In fact, because it's a repositioning cruise, we had to get passports for all the kids, and so they'd never had passports. We factored that into the decision. We looked at a lot of different cruises, and we actually liked this itinerary the best. It gave us a little bit of everything. A new starting point. It gave us sea days. It gave us 2 of our favorite islands and a new island that we haven't been to before. And obviously, I like to be fairly economical when I try and book my Disney vacations. It was a fairly inexpensive cruise considering those repositioning cruises you can always get a fairly good deal on. And I talked my in-laws into coming on this one, so they helped defray some of those costs as well.
Nice. Well, so getting out to Puerto Rico, you guys got to come all the way from Utah. That's quite a long flight. Was that something that you spent a couple days before the ship left? Kind of talk about that. And if you did, where did you stay?
So typically, I'm a big fan of just taking the red eye the night before. What we did is we took the red eye from Salt Lake to Orlando, and then we took a flight from Orlando to San Juan. And so we got into San Juan fairly early in the morning, the day before the cruise. We obviously were fairly jet lagged at that point, but we spent the day kind of exploring old San Juan, walking around, viewing the beaches. We brought the boogie boards for the kids, so they were just playing in the ocean most of the day. Explored the local delicacies of Puerto Rico. The kids wanted Taco Bell.
That sounds like my life too.
But my wife and I got some authentic food, and it was really, really good. We actually just stayed at the Hampton Inn close to the airport, which was great. I mean, it was a 5-minute cab ride from the airport and maybe 10, 15 minutes from the port. Honestly, you couldn't hear the planes unless you were out by the pool, and then you couldn't hear anything else but the planes when you were out by the pool. But the kids loved, just hanging out at the pool, free breakfast, all that sort of stuff. It was quite a nice day in San Juan.
Yeah, we actually love the Hampton. That's one of my favorite places to stay, just because of that breakfast in the morning. It's super easy to get the kids something to eat, and then you get on your way. So anything about embarking the Magic out of Puerto Rico that stands out in your mind for people?
Yeah, Port Canaveral has a pretty seamless process. The Port of Miami's a little bit not as good, but still it's a pretty good embarkation process. San Juan, they don't really quite have their stuff together yet. We weren't in any huge hurry to get on the ship in the morning, so we actually spent some time at the beach and let the kids play in the surf for a little while, and left for the port about, I don't know, a little before noon to try and get there before noon. and just the line outside. They just keep you out in the sun. It's just a big warehouse. There's no creature comforts like the Port Canaveral terminals or anything like that. By the time we got there, checked passports, it was about a half an hour before we got to get on the ship. We didn't have to wait around or anything like that in any holding areas. Yeah, but it's basically just a warehouse. They funnel you through.
San Diego's the same way, so except for you get to sit inside the warehouse there. The one time we embarked out of there. So, well, now this left November 30th, and then goes on into December. You guys leave San Juan. You head to St. Kitts, which I've never been to, which I'm curious to hear about. Tortola, day at sea, and then the beautiful Castaway Cay, and then you're on your way to Miami. It's a very maritime cruise. I know. For our family, one of the most special things that we've been able to do is go down to Disneyland during the holidays. And there's just something special about being in the parks when they're decorated, the hotels and whatnot. What was it like getting on the Disney Magic during the holidays?
We absolutely love the maritime cruises. This is our second maritime cruise. And the parks are the same for us. I love going right after Thanksgiving. The parks aren't crowded, and there's just something special. There's something magical in the air. We've been lucky enough to have our kids, our elementary kids, in kind of a year-round school program, and so they get 3 weeks off throughout the year at certain times when not everyone is off. And so we take those times and go on these big family trips, and this was no different. But getting on the Disney ship, just seeing the big tree. Unfortunately, you don't get on the main atrium deck. You get on a deck above in Puerto Rico and Miami, but you still have the big welcome, and then you can walk down the stairs and see the tree and see how everything's decorated, and it's just magical. I
love it. We've only done a Halloween on the high seas, and so it was pretty magical getting on with all the pumpkin stuff. So I could imagine, as far as having the garland in the atrium there and all the decorations up, it must have been pretty cool. Well, we won't get into too much of the minutia, but are you guys, since you've done so many cruises, are you the type that runs up to cabanas first, or do you have any tips or tricks for people as far as getting on the ship that you like to do, and maybe you don't want to give them away?
Yeah, we kind of go back and forth. We like cabanas. We just wanted to sit down, and so we just jumped into Lumiere's, and we had a really nice sit-down lunch. We actually sat at the table that we were going to sit at that night randomly, the same table we were assigned to. And it's just kind of nice just after the chaos of traveling for a couple days and before the chaos of the pool deck, just to kind of sit down and refresh a little bit before the kids go a little hog wild. We really enjoy that sit-down experience before we head up to the pool decks.
That's something we haven't done yet, but I think we're going to do it on the next ship, or the next cruise that we go on, because cabanas can be kind of a zoo sometimes when you get up there. Especially, we always show up late. We're never like rope dropping the ship, and so by the time we get there, it's usually pretty busy up there. So let's kind of go to the cabin stuff. You guys usually get 2 cabins. Of course, you said your in-laws were with you this time. With a family of 6, right? 4 kids plus you and your wife. How do you guys normally do the cabins? How do you split that up?
Yeah, so we've been lucky enough to either have my folks, and so we've just put 2 of them in the room with them and 2 in a room with us. And so in this cruise, we actually just had inside staterooms with 8 of us in connecting cabins. And connecting cabins are great for families. We absolutely love that. We've got our next cruise booked where we've got ocean view staterooms, but they're also connecting cabins. We've got 1 or 2 kids in with my folks, so it works really well. We like it a lot.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to do it. Well, you guys sat at your table there for dining in your rotation there. Was this the first time you've been on the Magic since they added Rapunzel's Royal Table?
It was the first time we've been on the Magic since Rapunzel's Royal Table. The Magic is my favorite ship. It was the first ship I ever went on. We absolutely love the new additions, and this was our first time seeing Rapunzel's Royal Table. We actually didn't see it till almost the last night. Yeah, so we hit Lumiere's a couple of times and Animator's Palette in our rotation, but we only hit Rapunzel's Royal Table the one time.
Gotcha. What were your thoughts of it? Did you like it?
I absolutely loved it. The interaction that they have with the thugs is so fun. And I don't know if you want to put this in the show notes, but I always do like a recap video of our cruise, and there's just some funny interactions with my youngest son and the thugs. They were just getting a rise out of him, and Rapunzel's great. She's always willing to stop by and pose for a portrait with your kids. We were kind of in a corner table, so we really couldn't see the show or what anything was going on. We just heard the music in the background. But there's a lot of interactive things that the kids can get up and dance, and then the Festival of the Lanterns and things like that they could participate in. But the food was great. It was probably one of our favorite dining experiences on the cruise.
Any other thoughts about dining?
We typically will take a night off and go to Palo, but we didn't actually do Palo on this cruise. We just wanted to spend as much time with the in-laws and with the kids as possible. We always choose second dining for some reason. But yeah, we really enjoy the rotational dining, especially on the Magic.
Before we do the very merry time stuff, what are some of the things that you guys as a couple, as a family, enjoy doing on the ship, some of the activities?
Yeah, so we always love the evening shows. Those are our favorite things to do. We make sure that we get there early. It's just such a magical experience going into the Walt Disney Theater and seeing whatever show they put on. It's fun with the variety acts. If you're there early, they'll typically pick you and do a little pre-show stuff. And the kids are always prodding me to get up there, and I had to do some flossing and some other dad moves, dancing up there on the pre-show. But they usually get a kick out of that, and so we absolutely love the evening shows. It's a great tradition to be together. On the Magic, what we do, and I hate to give away the secret because it's so perfect. I typically don't change out of my swimsuit, neither do my boys for the shows, and then we just go straight up to the pool deck and we do laps on the Aqua Dunk. Every night we get in at least about 18 to 20 drops down the Aqua Dunk in between the show and before we need to get ready for dinner. So there's no line. We just run back up, and I don't know about the Aqua Duck. We'll have to check that out next time. Hopefully it's a similar situation.
We did it right after dinner, but it was second seating. It was pretty late in the evening. By the time dinner got over, my youngest really wanted it. Our oldest had some friends, so he was off running with his friends, but our youngest just really wanted to go and ride it, and we rode it quite a bit after dinner. So that you're talking about the show before you actually ate dinners, but you might try that, I guess. Yeah,
it's right in between the seatings. No one's ever up on the pool deck. It's a great opportunity to just have a lot of fun up on the pool deck and just up and down the Aqua Dunk to keep dropping. 3, 2, 1, let's go. It's a blast.
I wish that the Aqua Dunk was like maybe 10 seconds longer. I don't know what they would do to it, but if it was like just 10 seconds longer, truth be told, I love the Aqua Dunk better than the Aqua Duck, but that's just me.
I'm there with you 100%. It's short, but the line is also short. You don't have to wait for 45 minutes to get on a tube.
Yeah.
It's just the adrenaline rush, and the kids love it. And we made a game out of trying to splash the attendant at the bottom, see how far our splash could get.
How about the kids clubs? Any thoughts on the kids clubs? Are your kids into going to those, or do you guys end up spending more time as a family doing the shows and the game shows together?
It's a mix of both. They do love going to the kids club, especially if there's activities. I'd always recommend going to the icebreaker nights for them to make some friends, both the tween clubs and the kids clubs. And with the second seating, the kids club attendants come about before dessert, and they'll take your kids to the club, and so we get to enjoy half an hour, 45 minutes as adults. They spend sometimes there during the day, and then we'll spend some times during the open house and the anyone can cook and the super slot science. We love doing those things, but no time just spending some time at the pool doing the twist and spout. That's a great slide for a kid slide. I absolutely love it. I would do laps on the twist and spout. Just because that's so fun. We obviously try and balance out shore excursions, but we just try and maximize our time on the ship. We don't want to miss a thing.
Well, let's kind of turn to the very maritime stuff. What are some of the things you said you've been on? This is your second one. What are some of the special things that they do that's a little bit different? Is the dining different in the dining rooms during the sailing? Or what are some of the things that you guys look forward to doing?
I don't recall the dining being very different. The first night of the cruise, there was a big welcome party for Santa. There was a big to do with the tree lighting ceremony where they pick a family and they get to sprinkle pixie dust and light the tree. There were bedtime stories with Mrs. Claus and Santa, and there were opportunities to do gingerbread cookies and things like that. There was a lot of little activities that were very Christmas themed, but I don't recall the dining rooms having too much theming around them. For sure, animators didn't. For sure, Rapunzel's Royal Table didn't have any theming. Lumiere's may have. I don't recall. Yeah, there were some fun things that the kids liked to go to. The bedtime stories, they liked those. There was opportunities for them to sign the naughty and nice list. That you can decide which side they went on. But
I think my youngest might actually put naughty just for the fun of it. He's a little troublemaker these days.
Yeah, I think all my kids put the naughty side. They knew what was going on.
Oh, that's awesome. So besides some of those activities, I know a lot of people have, take that opportunity to maybe take their Christmas card for the year, like in front of the tree or the atrium. Have you guys ever done anything like that?
We took a bunch of pictures. We're not big Christmas card people. It's more like a Christmas email.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we did take a few. If we can get our kids to smile long enough. Having teenagers, it's almost like pulling teeth to get them to smile. But yeah, we took a lot of pictures in front of the Christmas tree. We had a princess meet and greet one day with our little girl, and that was themed in front of the Christmas tree. Belle was themed out in her kind of winter dress, and so that had more of a Christmas theme to it. There were a few opportunities to take photos in front of those setups.
Any different characters as far as they don't have anything like toy soldiers or anything like that? It's just the regular characters, but they've got their Christmas costumes on.
Yeah, I don't recall any more other than the Clauses. Gotcha.
Okay, so Santa Claus comes with. He gets a vacation before his big night on the 24th. So I like that.
That's a pretty good gig. I'll tell you what. To take a series of cruises before the 24th. I'll take that any day. I'll grow a belly and a beard, and I'll take that gig any day.
We had an opportunity to be at Aulani after Christmas one year, and he was down on the beach there. You could get your picture taken with Santa down on the beach, and so that's not a bad gig, like you said. Sailing on Disney Cruise Line before the holidays, and then relaxing on the beach in Hawaii afterwards. So, well, anything else that we missed on the Christmas Very Merry Time stuff that we should talk about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything that really just stood out with the Very Merry Time. I mean, the theming's just all over the place. You hear it when you walk down the halls. It's Christmas versions of Disney songs. Just the little touches here and there at cabanas and up on the pool deck, and you have some of the staff wearing Santa hats, and it's just Disney does a great job of just those little delights throughout.
I know you've been to Disneyland during the holidays, and one of the things that always gets me is I love going to Cars Land. I don't know what it is about that land at Christmas time, and Mater has a Christmas tree made out of tires, like old tires, and it just, like you said, that little touch. I mean, it's nothing special or anything like that, but that, for some reason, that little touch always puts a smile to my heart. So I know what you mean about Disney doing it right as far as putting you in the mood. Well, let's turn to the ports. You guys got to go to two pretty spectacular ports in Castaway Cay. Had you been to St. Kitts and Tortola before? And let's start with St. Kitts. What you guys have planned there?
This was our first time to St. Kitts. We were really excited about this. I did a lot of research before. What are some of the highlights that I'd want to hit on the island? I typically don't book excursions through Disney. I have before, and they've been great. I'm kind of a guy that likes to do the in-depth research before and find something that just has a ton of great reviews and just go with that. And also with 6 kids, it adds up pretty quick, or with 6 of us, it adds up pretty fast to do an excursion from Disney. We got off fairly early in the morning. We had booked a kind of an island tour with a gal named Beulah, who just had amazing reviews on TripAdvisor. It was a relatively inexpensive tour. I think it cost us like $15 a person, and we were out there for 4 hours doing this island tour.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, for the whole family, it was under $100 with tip, and it was for 4 hours, you can't beat that.
So what did you guys get? Did you guys get to the beach? Did they give you history? What all did you guys get to do?
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, they put us on a bus, and we kind of got a guided tour throughout the entire island. We had various stops. We stopped at a sugarcane mill. We stopped at some of these old petroglyphs on the island. We stopped at an overlook that where the Caribbean and the Atlantic Sea meet, and got some amazing photos there. Some of these structures were just incredible to walk through and tour. A lot of history on the island. She was telling us tons of history. St. Kitts and Nevis are our sister islands. She was telling us all about our founding father Alexander Hamilton over on Nevis, and so there was. I love getting into that deep history and finding those little nuggets in every port we go to. But yeah, I think the tour was just well organized. She was sort of a Caribbean version of my mom, and so I really took to her.
Do you remember by any chance the tour, how to get a hold of her if somebody wanted to book this tour if they travel to St. Kitts?
I don't. I think I could find it though, and it was St. Kitts Tours with Beulah or something like that. I think if you just Googled St. Kitts Tours Beulah, Beulah, you would find her. And she was right there in the town square with her sign, and she knew we were coming. She said, "Oh, this is the Kobe family. Welcome, Kobe family." She was ready for us.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it when you meet those, locals that love their country, and they give you that flavor and they welcome you like that, and you just cannot get a better experience than when you have that. We found that in Russia. We did a tour in St. Petersburg, and it was just an amazing tour with somebody that I'll remember for the rest of my life. But good for you guys in St. Kitts there.
It was really, really fun.
So from there, you guys go to Tortola. Had you been there? And if you did, what did you guys have planned there?
We had, at least my wife and I had been to Tortola. We took a 7-night Eastern a couple years before this and stopped in Tortola. And I have to tell you, it is a gem if you haven't been to Tortola. I would highly, highly recommend that on your bucket list. I thought I loved St. Thomas until I went to Tortola. It is just amazing. So when we were there the first time, I thought, what's something off the beaten path we can do? And so I came across a surf school in Tortola. There's apparently one beach that just has amazing surf in Tortola. And so I was like, I'm not very good at surfing. I'm going to go take a lesson from these guys. And so I think it's bvisurfschool.com, and met the guys there. Ika, he gave me a surf lesson. And after an hour of surfing, I was just wrecked. I was just totally destroyed. It's completely on the other side of the island. And so you have to take one of those open air taxis. And honestly, you think you're going over these mountains in Tortola. You think you're climbing to the top of Everest on these little tiny buses. It's just this mountainous island, and then you come flying down these little tiny roads, and they drop you off at this beach, and they'll say, "All right, we'll see you at noon to pick you up." And it's a deserted beach. It was just us and the people that went with us on the taxi on this beach in the middle of nowhere. It was called Josiah's Bay. And it was just gorgeous, pristine. At the time, there was a little cafe on the beach that you could go and you could get a drink or some nachos or something like that. Unfortunately, the hurricane came straight through there and knocked basically everything out. So when we were there this time, the restaurant was completely gone. The foundation was all that was remained of that. The surf school was using a kind of a shipping portable as their surf school, but it was just ravaged. The beach was kind of torn down. But we decided to, we wanted to go back. We had such a great experience that first time. We wanted to take the kids back, and we rented a taxi and drove across the island in this little, 1980s Volkswagen bus. And we're like, oh gosh, I hope the brakes work because this thing is so beat up. But it was a blast, and we just rented some surfboards and some boogie boards for the kids, and just spent the day surfing over in Josiah's Bay. Just had an absolute wonderful time playing in the ocean there.
Are your kids pretty good surfers? The older ones, they can do it, or did they get up?
They can get up, the older ones. The younger kids just love playing in the surf and doing the bodyboard. They love those boogie boards. Our little girl, she just wanted to to cling on me and play in the waves and just get her hair wet as much as she possibly could. But the waves are actually really both surfing and boogie boarding.
Oh, that's hard to find, actually, in all honesty. So
It really is. It was surprising to me because, we'd been to several beaches in the Caribbean, but this one actually had good surf.
We got our kids out surfing in North Carolina when we were there last summer, and they loved it. They've been boogie boarding forever, and so this is the first time they got up. So that sounds like the perfect thing to do in Tortola if you're a little bit more adventurous to get over there. So you guys get a day at sea, and then you're over to Castaway Cay. Obviously, you've been to Castaway Cay quite a few times. What are some of the things that your family enjoys doing, or how do you guys spend a day on Castaway Cay?
We like to take full advantage of Castaway Cay, and usually it's the last day of our trip. We've never done a 4-day where we have a sea day afterwards, so we try and maximize our time at Castaway Cay. I've never done the 5K and gotten off the ship early. I guess they don't allow. I guess you don't get off that early anymore with the 5K, but we try to get off first thing in the morning. We typically have a spot that we like to head to and camp out that's kind of right by the Pelican Plunge area and also by the snorkeling lagoon. But the kids love to play in the water. We typically bring our own snorkel sets and some GoPros so we can get out in the snorkel lagoon and do a couple laps with various kids out in the snorkel lagoon and try and find all the hidden Mickeys and all the sunken ships. The kids love doing that. I mean, if you can get past the seaweed and, that first 100 yards or so in the snorkeling lagoon, it's pretty amazing out there. They've done a nice job.
I think they should tell you that, because I think the couple times we've been snorkeling out there, I see a lot of people give up because it's such a long ways to get through that seagrass. But once you get past there, they've got, like you said, Mickey and Minnie, and then the submarine down there and all kinds of fun things you can find.
Yeah, it's amazing. The submarine, they've got a boat that they've sunk down there. There's a treasure chest. There's Mickey, Minnie. We tried to find all of them this time. I think we got most of them.
And I want to plug the video again, too, because you had a great shot of, I can't remember if it was Mickey or Minnie, but it was like the clearest shot I think I've seen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got some good shots of that. The fish love to hang out by that Mickey statue.
So besides, hanging out on the beach and everything else, have you ever done any of the excursions on it? We finally did parasailing, which I don't know if we would do it every time, and it gets canceled, I guess, obviously a lot. But that was pretty cool just to be able to see the ship in the background. Have you done any other excursions like that?
We've never done the parasailing. I guess the only excursion we've ever done, and I wouldn't even qualify it as an excursion, but we do rent bikes and bike around the island. We like that. We spend a lot of time on the Pelican Plunge. The kids love to do just laps on that, especially in the morning and late in the evening when there's no lines. That's a really fun thing to do. And then we'll typically, spend most of the day together, spend the morning together, and have lunch together. And then we figure it's probably time that we spend a little time by ourselves. And so we'll either let the kids hang out with the grandparents, or we'll send them to Scuttle's Cove to hang out on the kids club for a couple hours while we can go to Serenity Bay for a little while.
I still have never been over there, but my wife and I finally found, if you walk past, I'm trying to pull it up here right now because I can't remember the name of it's like a little bit of land if you go past Pelican Plunge, and they've got a bar out there. And you get great views back towards the ship. But we found that the last couple of times we'll usually go out there late in the afternoon and have a drink, just kind of relax together while the kids are playing in the water, and then we'll come back and pick them up on our way back to the ship.
We love just getting away, having a little, it's our vacation too. We want to have a little us time. And so this time we just took the tram out to Serenity Bay. Last time we were in Serenity Bay, when it was just the two of us, we spent probably 3 or 4 hours there. And they have, when the tide's low, there's a sandbar you can walk out to and just hang out in the sandbar, which is really cool. And we saw probably a dozen starfish along the way. And then, you could pick them up and take a look at them and put them in different places. That was really fun. This time the sandbar wasn't visible. I guess the tide was a little too high, so we just spent some time in hammock, hanging out in the beach chairs.
Have you looked at Lighthouse Point at all? As far as some of the, I know it's just, kind of drawings right now, so who knows what it's going to really turn out to be, but have you looked at that at all?
Yeah, I've been trying to keep up with it as much as we can. Any information's gold about Lighthouse Point. We're kind of hoarding those little nuggets as much as we possibly can. We're excited to go visit. It looks like the vibe at Lighthouse Point is very different from Castaway Cay. Castaway Cay is very laid back. It's, you're shipwrecked there. You're just hanging on the beach. Lighthouse Point looks like it's a little bit more, I wouldn't say intense, but maybe intense is the word. It looks absolutely beautiful. I'm excited to check it out. Hopefully soon.
After hearing Jimmy on our show several times talk about his experiences there, it just sounds like an amazing place. So I can't wait to see what they do with it. So from here, Castaway Cay, you guys are back to Miami. Any thoughts about disembarking in Miami? And I want to, before we end the show, you guys have got such a vast experience sailing with Disney Cruise Line. I want to kind of hit you up on some tips for people who may be sailing the first time or sailing on some of these different sailings. But anything about getting off in Miami?
Yeah, we've gotten off in Miami a couple of different times. It's usually a fairly smooth process. Customs goes fairly quickly. We typically like to just walk off with our bags. We find that that's the easiest thing to do. And having the second seating for dinner is really nice because then we get that last breakfast. We don't have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to hit breakfast before you get off. And so, we get a little bit of I wouldn't say sleep in, but you at least get to have a good night's sleep before you get off and head into Miami. It was fairly seamless process. We rented a Suburban in downtown Miami. I just took an Uber and grabbed the Suburban. That wasn't too bad. And then we went to a science museum in Fort Lauderdale and spent the whole day there before our flight. That was really fun to just kind of play around in Fort Lauderdale for a few hours before our flight.
I think once your kids get old enough and they can drag their own bags like that, dragging your own bags off is so much easier, I feel, for us to. Yeah. It kind of cuts down. We don't feel as like that need to get back to the room after Castaway Cay to get everything packed to get it out there in time, and having that second seating, like you said, is so much more relaxing in the mornings.
Yeah, I mean that day at Castaway Cay is always the worst when you're headed back to the ship and you have to pack and get ready. It's the worst feeling. I mean, we were literally probably the last people on the ship, maybe the second to last people on the ship at Castaway Cay. We're definitely the last tram. We just want to maximize our time there, and we don't really want to pack. Just at the end of the night, just throw everything into a suitcase. We'll figure it out when we get home.
Exactly.
Want to make the most of our trip.
Well, before we kind of end today, Kobe, what are you guys have been on so many different cruises. What are some of the tips or things that you'd like to pass on to some of our listeners who may be sailing for the first time out of Miami on a repositioning cruise, just with Disney Cruise Line in general?
Well, here's a don't. If you're cruising out of Miami, do not fly into Port Canaveral or into Orlando. that drive in the morning is just brutal. We had an awful experience driving from Orlando to Miami one morning. So if you're going in and out of Miami, fly into Miami or Fort Lauderdale. It'll save you time and headaches. I think my biggest tip is just maximize your time there. You don't have to be a schedule overscheduled or everything. Just make sure that you're looking at the navigator and you mark off some things you want to do. And if you don't hit them all, don't worry about it. There's always something fun to do for you and your family, no matter what time of day. We've had cruises before where we had bad weather on Castaway Cay Day, and we actually couldn't port, and that was such a bummer. But Disney does such a great job of just creating these fun activities for you, and they create this day out of nothing. Where they didn't have anything planned, and now they've got hours of activities planned. So there'll always be activities for you and for your family. I guess another tip for us that has worked really well, if you're coming from the Mountain Time Zone or West Coast, late seating is gold. You can get it every single time. You don't need to worry about trying to jockey to get that early seating. And even with little kids, we've had little kids and they've done well. We've never had anyone fall asleep in their soup or anything like that, so that's good. We did have one kid fall asleep one night, and the servers were just so great. They made a bed out of a couple different chairs. They found a blanket for him. He had a nice little nap at 8:30 at night. Of course, he didn't sleep until 1 o'clock in the morning. But who cares? Another thing is go to those evening shows. We love the evening shows, even if it's the variety acts. we've had some really fun magicians. I think we had David Cassidy on this cruise, as well as Buckets and Boards. I don't know if you've ever seen them before, but they are just so entertaining. Just don't miss the entertainment. Disney goes out of their way to find the best entertainment, whether it's their own shows or the people they bring on. It's definitely worth the price of admission, which you've already paid for. So
take advantage of it.
Take advantage of that. Let's see. Trying to think of what are some other firsts. I mean, just do your research. I'm a big spreadsheet guy. I'll always got a list of cruises that I think are feasible for us. I'll have a big spreadsheet of all the costs, what it's going to cost to get us there and to make the magic happen, so to say. But planning, it definitely goes a long way. And for me, planning's like half the fun. Just getting excited about it. We, during quarantine, some of the pastimes that we did to keep ourselves busy is, we'd go out at night and sit in the hot tub and talk about all the fun stuff that we wanted to do on the next Disney cruise, and unfortunately we have to wait another year for that now. But, give us more to talk about for the next year.
You guys are kind of in that special school district too, having that year-long school. I wish we had that, because having 3 weeks at some different times of the year when it's not quite so crowded, it makes it a lot easier to do that. And one of the things that I enjoy, and I know Christy's not a fan of the app, but I actually love the app. And like you said, kind of going through it's amazing. Each day I'll go through and like mark down all these different things that like I'm kind of interested in. I don't know how many times like you'll be doing something else and something will pop up and like, oh, this is going on right now. Like, do you want to do it? Do you not want to do it? You can make that decision then and either sit in the chair and enjoy the book you're reading or go off to that animation class. So a lot of good tips there, Kobe.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we just try and make it as fun as we possibly can. These are, I figure this is the best opportunity we have to create memories. And this is what our kids talk about and they keep talking about for years to come. And they keep watching the videos on Sundays just to reminisce about these really cool experiences that we get to share together. And, creating these memories is what it's all about. Yeah, Disney has a nice price tag to it. It's a little hefty sometimes, but totally worth it for the memories. And, we only get so long with our kids while they're at home. We might as well make the most of it.
It does go by fast, and you said it so well there. We'll just leave it at that. Well, Kobe, thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing your experiences on this cruise and as you were, sailing in the crew quarters as well and on the Big Red Boat. I look forward to getting some pictures from you and sharing those with the listeners as well. And I hope that maybe you guys get a chance even before that double dip, or not the double dip, before the cruise next November comes up. But if not, we'd love to have you come back and talk some more Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, my wife's threatening me that we need to get an adult trip without the kids. So as soon as we can, we'll get out there again. Well,
I'm telling you, don't bypass that 3-day out of San Diego. My wife and I did that, just the two of us, down to Ensenada, and just had a blast. You get 1 day at sea. Ensenada was we had a good time kayaking there and had some amazing tacos, some street tacos there. So not as far away as having to go to Florida. So don't write that one off the list.
For sure.
So, all right, Kobe. Well, thanks so much for coming on. All the best to you and your family. Be well, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Kobe for coming on and sharing his and his family's experiences as he sailed as a kid on the Big Red Boat all the way to sailing with friends in the crew quarters and finally touching on that very maritime repositioning cruise out of San Juan. Just a lifetime of sailing with Disney Cruise. I really appreciate him coming on and sharing all his stories and perspectives with us today. Well, if you've been enjoying what you've been hearing lately with us on the DCL podcast, we sure would appreciate it if you go over to iTunes and leave us a review. This helps others find our show who are interested in Disney Cruise Line, Disney talk in general, Adventures by Disney, Run Disney, all the different topics that we really enjoy talking about here at the DCL podcast. And if you'd like to come on our show, we would love to have you. You can reach out to me, Steve, at DCLpodcast.com, and we'll set up a time for you or your family to talk a little Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney with us. Also, we appreciate each and every one of our Patreon members who help support this show and bring it to you every week. If you would like to join our Patreon program, you can go over to patreon.com/DCLpodcast and find more information there. Well, between now and our next show, if you're heading out on your next adventure, whether it's a staycation or just out there spending some time with your family somewhere around the beautiful United States or wherever you live in the world, all of us here at the DCL podcast, myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, wish you and your family all the best. Just be well out there, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.